Hello and welcome to My Business Story podcast. This is Johnny Perez, your host. Today, we're going to be interviewing Michael Collins. He's the insurance professional of this generation. He's going to drop some knowledge on you, but are you ready to listen to what he has to say? I guess we're going to find out. Michael Collins, are you here today with us?
Yes, I am, my man. How you doing, Johnny?
I am well. I'm well. Wow, this has been some kind of trip. Your life story. We're gonna go over that. Why you started insurance, and how you're able to come up with a story on the spot. If my name wasn't, if your name was Johnny, it would be Johnny on the spot, right? But Michael on the spot. Well, yeah. So thank you for coming on the podcast. We're gonna have a good time. So yeah. So Michael, sort of set the scene.
Yeah.
How did things begin for you? Baby Michael Collins. And everything like that. Up to how you got into insurance and all.
How I got into insurance. Interesting. All through school, I had visions of being an architect originally. I can draw very well. Actually, the T-shirt I drew the picture as well.
Beautiful.
So my father, when when most kids ask your kid, what do you want to do when you grow up? I always wanted to do something professional. So I told my dad, hey, I want to be an architect. So he's like, all right, what do you want to do? So I applied to all the schools, got
Mhm.
accepted to all the schools. Financial aid came back and said, even after all the money we're going to give you, you still have to pay $40,000. And unfortunately, we didn't plan very well for that. So I had to pivot a little bit and find something else that I thought would be just as lucrative. So I decided to do computer science. Felt that that was potentially going to be my opportunity to get into the professional field. So through uh, college and most of high school, I worked at Foot Locker. So people from where I live, they knew me as Mr. Foot Locker. I
Mhm.
was in there day and night, trying to save money and stuff like that with most kids in college. To try and make extra ends meet, I went over to one of our competitors, which was Finish Line. So I worked both, kind of conflict of interest, but I,
Mhm.
I I did that. And then for a third kind of kicks, one of the stores that opened in the mall was a female store by the name of Charlotte Roos. So we used to watch all the people come in for the interviews and stuff like
Mhm.
that. I told my buddies, I said, dude, I'm gonna get a job up there. And he was like, yeah, whatever, whatever. So the day they opened, I walked in, I asked to speak to the manager and I said, do they have any guys that work here? And she said, no. I said, I'm the first one. She said she loved my confidence and hired me on the spot.
Mhm.
So worked through those jobs all through college. Then in college, I felt like the computer science route was going to be, stuck in the cubicle, not able to talk to people, dealing with all these people through Foot Locker, Finish Line, and Charlotte Russe. I really enjoyed,
Mhm.
conversation, and
Yeah.
I didn't think that was going to be a big route for me. So back when we used to look at jobs in a newspaper,
Mhm.
I found an insurance job. And it got me by saying that you would make $100,000 your first year with no experience.
Mm.
So, a 22-year-old kid make 100
Yeah.
grand. Of course, man. I can
Shiny
do this.
coin.
Yeah, right. So that's the shiny coin. So that's got me into insurance, and that's how I started the route. Went in for the interviews and kind of bet on myself, and it
Mhm.
worked out. Literally, I went to the casino to play what was it,
Mm.
blackjack. I played
Ooh.
blackjack to get the money to be able to
Mhm.
pay for my insurance books to be able to get into the field.
Mhm. Well, that's awesome. Are you that good in blackjack?
Absolutely not, man. It was luck of the draw, man. I mean, I think I was in that casino at my interview was probably around 1 o'clock. I went to the casino at around 3. I was the
Mhm.
only guy sitting at the table. They were playing with one deck, which was shocking me. The only place I've ever
Mhm.
seen that was Vegas.
Mhm.
And I played for probably about a half an hour. I won like $200. I took that money back and bought my books on the spot.
Mhm. That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
So as you sort of pursued this career in insurance, was it a passion as you started to grow in it? And then, did you have a plan as you started selling policies? Like, what was your end goal with that?
Yeah, so it was getting into insurance was more so of a pivot. Like you said, it was the
Mhm. Yeah.
coin that was flashed in front of me. $100,000. What other kid wouldn't want to try and make 100 grand? I think between all three of those jobs, I possibly cleared 26,000, if that. So
Mhm.
$100,000 was great. So it was the shiny coin that got me into that. Getting into the business, I felt, well, what I was told in the interview is I have to kind of create a foundation. So,
Mhm.
I told my father what I was going to do. It was commission only. Father told me I was the craziest person on the planet for doing this, stick with the original plan. But I
Yeah.
said, no, no, I can do this. I can figure this out. So, what they told me was most sales jobs, you have to, start selling with your friends and your family and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So, I
My
had a
family.
list. Yeah, kind of. That's what most people would think. But I was selling
Yeah.
life insurance
Yeah.
with the company that I started out with. That's how I started with insurance, selling life insurance. The company was called American Amicable. It was based out of Texas, but I
Mhm.
worked at one of the satellite offices here in Groton. Well, in Groton, Connecticut. But what I did was I compiled a list of friends just to have a conversation, just to talk about, you know, what their needs were, how insurance worked, and things of that nature.
Mhm.
And I had to create my own voice, and I think it kind of helped me create my own voice. But that foundation gave me an opportunity to kind of sharpen my sword.
Yeah.
Instead of walking in there and not really knowing what to do, I was talking to friends. So it's just
Mhm.
like you and I sitting there having this conversation. If I messed up, it really wasn't that big of a deal. So
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to kind of mess up with my friends before I got into the real world. So
That's
once
good.
I got into the real world of actually selling, or really selling insurance,
Mhm.
kind of felt like second nature. It was just comfortable conversations. And I always, even to this day, try and make those conversations or those conversations with clients, conversation pieces, not a sale. I'm just
Yeah.
explaining stuff as I would talk to a friend.
Yeah. And I feel that sort of works out a lot better in your favor because they don't feel like you're being pushy and all of
Exactly.
that.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
but just to sort of step back a little bit, considering the insurance company that you work for, what would you sort of label yourself in the insurance field? Like what kind of insurance? And then if you can talk about the company that you work for, and then are you a contractor or how does that work?
So currently, right now, yes, I'm a contractor. So
Mhm.
I'm not necessarily a contractor. I'm a broker.
Yeah.
So the broker gives me the ability to be licensed through several different avenues. So our particular company, we specialize in high net worth clientele as well. So we can insure anyone who's worth $500 up to 500 million. So we
Mhm.
have an array of different companies with some of the higher net worth individuals, and then we have the company or the division of the company that I primarily work in, which is considered personal lines. So
Mhm.
personal lines is your everyday auto home insurance, motorcycles, boats, and
Mhm.
things of that nature, RVs, motorhomes, and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's what I primarily focus on in my areas.
All right, awesome, awesome. And then, what were some of the early on the biggest challenges you faced when you first started selling insurance?
I would say finding my voice. I think getting into insurance in a lot of people's misconceptions are, it's not that hard. Like any other sales job, it's you have to find a way to make it your own.
Mhm.
Walking into insurance, yeah, the companies or the computer will tell you a price, but that's only one step of 50 steps that you have to make in order to get a client to really trust you. So I think that what I had to learn early was getting clients to trust what I was saying, because originally I didn't start selling auto and home insurance. I was selling an intangible object. I was
Mhm.
selling life insurance.
Mhm.
So life insurance, I felt that was a very hard sale to really wrap your head around, because it's not for you.
Mhm.
What you're buying is for a legacy or for your family or for
Yeah.
things of that nature. There's few products out there that you can buy that will help you now, but most everyday people don't purchase those. So
Yeah.
to be able to get someone to really understand what I'm trying to explain, that was probably one of the hardest things that I had to overcome.
Yeah. Yeah. And talking about overcoming, was there ever a time where you felt like you wanted to give up, and then, if so, what sort of got you to push through that?
Give up? No. I'm probably one of the rare people that I've never woke up and said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I quit.
Mhm.
I, like I said in the beginning of the conversation, I always bet on myself.
Mhm.
I always I try and play this whole scenario of life like chess. I always
Mhm.
try and think 2 or 3 steps ahead of some of the decisions that I make. So if something does go left or something does go right, I have some form of a outline or a plan on what may potentially happen.
Yeah.
So I never look at it as, oh, I'm going to give up or anything like that, because I have a plan of what I might do if this doesn't work. It
Mhm.
works out that way.
Yeah.
Um, so that's how I try and look at things.
Yeah. You mentioned chess.
Yeah.
Do you prefer chess over checkers?
Well,
And what do you
absolutely.
think about people that play checkers?
I grew up on checkers, man.
Yeah.
Checkers is cool, man. You jump 4 or 5 spots and all the other cool stuff. But chess, I don't play it very often, but I
Mhm.
love the strategy behind it.
Yeah.
So like I said, the strategy behind it is a thinking man's game.
Mm.
So you always, and which I try and teach my kids, they never listen to me, but that,
Eventually.
yeah, it is what it is. But
Mm.
it's a thinking man's game, and
Yeah.
I feel like, with life, especially in business,
Yeah.
um personal, whatever it may be, regardless of what field you're in, even outside of what I do for insurance, you
Mhm.
always have to have some kind of an outline of what might or might happen, because
Mhm.
there's always has to be a contingency plan. I
Mhm.
mean, nothing is always black or white. There's always gray involved.
Yeah.
And I feel like I try and keep my finger in every area, so I know, okay, if, like I said, if this doesn't work on the left hand side, I have a plan on the right, I have a plan up top, I have a plan on the bottom, I
Yeah.
have A, B, C, D, E, and F outlined just in
Yeah.
case. So that's one thing that, I feel a lot of my friends say, I'm always even killed. I never
Mhm.
scream, I never yell, and they always ask me, why are you so cool? I said, because I
Uh-huh.
I have an idea of what I might do if this doesn't work. So,
Yeah.
I'm not that stressed out about it.
Yeah. You're the kinda guy that has plan F.
Yeah, exactly. I have to. I
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah, and
Because
then as it pertains to chess, I actually grew up playing chess,
yeah.
and learning how to strategize. I think that really helped me in business to
Mhm.
sort of have those plans, those contingencies, those backups in case, and especially with, filmmaking and photography, which is my business.
Right.
I always have multiple sources of audio, multiple sources of, video angles, and then different strategies on how I'm gonna, film something or photograph something based on things that worked, but then in case it doesn't work, because like you said, there are gray areas. Sometimes things
Right.
aren't always going to go your way, and you need to figure it out. And especially you, being the man of your domain, your home. There are a lot of things, the dominion aspect of that's, your children rely on you, your wife relies on you, society, your family relies on you. There are a lot of things that are pulling on you, and then us as men, we need to sort of, you know take care of our own,
Right.
and that's good
Right.
that you learned that in an early age, and you're teaching that to your children,
Yeah.
and that's really awesome.
That's
And
what I was talking about with
yeah.
the education moment from,
Mhm.
I think you missed out on it yesterday in our networking
Oh,
group.
okay, yeah.
But the education moment, a small piece of it was, I was talking about an orange. So
Mhm.
when you squeeze an orange, what comes out of an orange is orange
Mhm.
juice.
Yep.
You're not going to get, no matter how hard you squeeze it, you're not going to get apple juice or grapefruit juice or wine or anything
Mhm.
such as that. So it's interesting with us, we, like you said, as men, we do get squeezed a lot.
Mhm.
I feel pressure. I may be cool, but I feel pressure just like any other person.
Mhm.
So, the pressure comes, and sometimes most people, when that pressure comes, the things that come out is anxiety, stress, a whole bunch of other stuff that could come and squeeze out of that orange. And the
Mhm.
interesting thing, or the caveat to that, and the cool part about us, is that people as a whole can control what comes out of that. So having a plan to kind of control what comes out of that orange, and it's not always, something that's going to be aggression or stress or anything like that, I think is part of how I look at life on a day to day, and why I say I prefer chess over checkers.
Yeah. And then sort of small plug for the dogs in the background. Do
Yeah.
you wanna say anything about if someone wants, some of your dogs?
Oh my God, man. I thought you said you were going to edit that part out, but yes. So, um, for people who don't know, why I say I feel pressure is, not only do I have 4 kids, but I have 5 dogs, and 2 of the dogs that I had 10 puppies. So at one
Mhm.
point, we had 15 dogs in my house. And I mean, you talk about stress. It's like
Mhm.
having 10 more kids, and
Mhm.
toddlers running around. And at this point right now, they are 5 months old. So
Mhm.
they're teenagers. They're at that, what
Mhm.
they call it, velociraptor phase, where they eat everything. I just
Yeah.
had one of them pull a piece of my wall off earlier today. It's just craziness. But I'm left with 5 dogs. So if anyone wants, please give me a call at the end of this.
Yeah.
You can have a free puppy. I'm not
Yeah.
charging. None of this is for profit.
Yeah, and then the details to get a
Yeah, I was
hold of
about to
my
say the
company.
details will be at the bottom of the
Yeah.
link.
Yeah, awesome. So, talking about mentors and everything, were there any mentors in your life that really, you know, helped you get to where you are right now and sort of guided you in the early days?
Absolutely. My father was my first mentor. Granted, he didn't believe in me doing sales, but
Mhm.
prior to that, my father's story was extremely inspiring to me. Is why I feel like I have that, that extra push. I'm originally from upstate New York.
Mhm.
My father was the first one to come here in Connecticut, so he took a trade class up in upstate New York. Him and a
Mhm.
couple of his buddies drove down to here in Connecticut, started working at General Dynamics as a welder for the submarines,
Mhm.
and at one point was living out of his car and setting up shop before me and my mother was able to come down.
Yeah.
And I watched him grind to the bone, working outside, getting up at 4 in the morning to go weld these submarines and stuff like that. And one day he said, I think I can do better, and I
Mhm.
want to do better. I don't want to be outside all the time. So
Mhm.
he went to night school, took some additional classes, and took a class which allowed him to be now a drafter. And he's been a drafter for, Jesus, man, going on upwards of almost 20 years now over
Mhm.
at General Dynamics. So
Awesome.
I'm extremely proud of my father. So watching him grind through that instilled in me is like, you know what, this stuff isn't that bad. I can do more. I can do better. And then when I got into the professional field, the first job, insurance job that I took over in Groton, Carl Reitermeister was the owner of the agency, and Thomas Benelli was his
Mhm.
partner. These guys showed me what success looked like on the business side. They were the first ones that I seen be able to create something out of nothing and
Mhm.
create a business and show me a model of what it looked like.
Yeah.
I attribute Carl as my one of the primary person that taught me how to talk to clients, how to voice inflections, listen before you speak.
Yeah.
A lot of things just in business in general, not just sales. I mean, just people in general should really listen more before they talk.
Yeah.
Really understand what people are saying and to treat someone as a client, not a customer, because a
Yeah.
client will always come back to you and they will trust you. You will become their
Mhm.
trusted advisor. A customer will leave you in a heartbeat and go find the next cheapest, best shiny coin that's off in
Yeah.
the world. So
Yeah.
I remember we used to have to go my first 4 months were which is a lost art, role playing, talking to yourself in the mirror to see what you look like when you talk to people,
Mhm.
listening to how your voice sounds, recording yourself to
Mhm.
really see what you look like and things like that. We used to role play different scenarios, and now with going through that, there isn't a person alive that I'm uncomfortable talking to because
Yeah.
he used to make up some of the most ridiculous scenarios. I would say there is no way I'm going to meet someone that's going to say this to me
Yeah.
until the day I did. And then
Uh-huh.
I didn't feel uncomfortable talking to him because I
Yeah.
said I used to role play this scenario for
Mm.
months. I
Yeah.
know how I'm going to pivot with
Yeah.
this whole scenario. So I think he helped me tremendously, and
That's awesome.
I'm grateful for forever for that.
Wow, that's awesome. And how did entering the insurance world, affect your personal life or relationships? Were there people that sort of like, I don't know, lowbrowed you or like thought the world of you? Like, how did that sort of,
Yeah, my friends thought I was rich because
uh,
I have more money than them, man. It was
uh,
it was crazy, but it was cool. It helped me on a personal level, relationship wise. Like I said, it taught me how to really have a conversation, really
Mhm.
listen and understand people better.
Yeah.
So relationship wise, I feel that it helped me a lot. Personal, it allowed me to be able to see a lot of different things. With
Mhm.
this company, it was the first time I was able to really travel. So I used
Mhm.
to win all the annual trips, the recognition
Oh, that's
trips
awesome.
and all of that stuff. I seen places that I probably would have never seen had I not entered into this world. So,
Mhm.
first trip to the Caribbean and Vail. I was out and skiing out in Vail. I mean, something I probably would
Ooh.
have never done, but it
Mhm.
was amazing. But it was a good experience, and it
Yeah.
opened my eyes up to stuff outside of Connecticut, and to
Mhm.
see what was out there.
Yeah, talking about vacations, what are
Mhm.
your top 3 vacation destinations?
That I've been to or I want to go to.
Been to and then go to. So 3 and
Been
3.
to and go to. Okay, so that I've been to,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say Italy is number one. Just got
Mhm.
back from Italy last year.
Mhm.
Hands down, I told my family and stuff. I think at one point I was an old Italian man or something like that, man.
Forget
I
about it.
I I felt like as soon as I got there, it was just like I love this place. It's just amazing. So I say
Mhm.
Italy is number one. Paris was probably number two,
Mm.
and then I would take, let me see, probably Bahamas as number three. So I love
Mm.
the ocean.
Yeah.
Growing up in New London, I have a spot in New London. Not many people know is my secret spot, but that's my spot
Okay.
that I go to, and I
So
just
everyone
listen.
that's listening, this is between us.
Yeah, exactly. But I have a spot in New London that I go to, and I used to go there and think, and I used to dream, and I used to ride my bike down there when I was younger, and I would just sit and listen to the ocean, and I would think about, what do I want my life to look like? What do I
Mhm.
envision the things that I want to accomplish and things like that? And thankfully, through the grace of God, a lot of the stuff has actually come true. And
Yeah.
I love the ocean, and like I said, and the sound and stuff like that. So that's why I
Mhm.
think the Bahamas is probably at the top. In regards
Awesome.
to places I want to go,
Yeah.
I would say Greece. I haven't. I would
Okay.
like to go to Greece. I would like to do probably Barcelona, somewhere in
Mhm.
Spain. Um,
Mhm.
and
Está bien.
yeah, you know, I've been trying to learn Spanish for probably
Yeah.
20 years, and
Uh-huh.
you do the Duolingo and all of that stuff, and I think the first time I tried it, I think I
Mhm.
froze trying to
Yeah.
actually have a conversation with
Oh,
somebody. I
no.
can understand it very, very well. I can actually
Yeah.
read it too, but to have the
Okay.
conversation,
Yeah.
like a deer in headlights, man. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
The 2 best ways to do it is immersion is number 1, is like
Yeah,
staying somewhere for like, a couple months or whatever. You're
yeah.
gonna learn to learn it.
You'll absorb it, right?
Yeah, the other one is going to a restaurant.
Mm,
So there's a Mexican deli I like to go to once in a while and order everything in Spanish.
yep.
So that keeps me sort of practiced. And then the immersion aspect is my in-laws. They don't
That's
speak
true. They don't
very
speak
much
English,
English at all.
but you have
So
to.
it's like when I'm there, it's all Spanish.
Okay.
So that helps.
I'm gonna have to try that. I'm gonna put that on my list.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then my last destination would probably be oh, Canada was cool too. I was at
Mhm.
Montreal as well. I had to
Nice.
put that up there too. Montreal was actually kind of cool.
Mhm.
Um, and then my other one would probably be somewhere in South America.
Yeah.
I think South America is
Brazil.
beautiful. Yeah, something
Mhm.
like that. I mean, it. Of course, I'm gonna have to learn the language. It's probably better, but yeah, South America would probably be up on the
Yeah.
bucket list as well.
That's awesome. And then how do you stay going back to insurance and business,
Mhm.
how do you stay motivated in the field that you're in? I'm sure you get like a lot of rejection and a lot of
Yeah,
people saying, I don't know, let me think about it.
of course. Yeah, that's
How
the
how
number
do you
one.
stay
That's the
yeah,
number
how do
one
you
thing.
stay educated and then,
Yeah.
how do you combat rejection in that aspect?
Yeah. So to stay motivated, I always think about my why. So
Mm,
my why is my kids, and
mhm,
and the reason why I say that is I think back to me and watching my father, go through what he went through and stuff like that, and I always say, well, I can't give up, I can't quit, I can't show them, defeat or anything like that because I don't want them to say, well, it's okay for me to give up because my dad didn't really follow through and
mm,
stuff like that. So
mhm,
that's my That's my motivation. That's how I stay grounded and stay humble, with
Yeah.
everything that I do in regards to that. In regards to the rejection, I mean, it's part of the business.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. I think the role playing stuff that I used to do with Carl,
Yeah.
um, gave me a really, really, really thick skin. So there's
Mhm.
not much anyone can say to me to make me feel like, I'm the rejection part is going to hurt me. I mean, it's
Mhm.
the way I look at it is everyone that I talk to is a client at some point. You may tell
Mm.
me no today, but eventually you might tell me yes because something is going to change in your life. I
Mhm.
have people that I've spoken to 8, 9, 10 years ago that it
Mhm.
just didn't work out. But like I said, treating people as a client instead of a
Yeah.
customer. You
Mhm.
follow up on birthdays or shoot an email, hey, how's everything going? Things of that nature. People will eventually come back and say, hey, you know what, man, I was thinking about reviewing my stuff. Can you just take a look at it?
Mhm.
And it just eventually comes back. So I see every no as just another opportunity to say yes later on down the line.
Yeah, and have you ever, consciously got yourself into scenarios where you know you're gonna get a lot of rejection just to sort of see how much you can not
Yeah,
push them, but to learn and then to grow and
yeah.
then to move on from there?
Yeah. So when I first started in insurance, like I said, I sold life insurance, and
Mhm.
the people in the office was always scared to speak to officers. So
Mm.
that
Mm.
our primary clientele was the military base in Groton, the naval sub base.
Yeah.
So if an officer came in, everyone would freeze, and they felt
Mhm.
like, okay, well, these guys are generally, to be an officer, you have to be college educated.
Mhm.
Um, Typically, you're in the military a little bit longer than the average, E1 or E2, which is
Yeah.
just regular people fresh out of boot camp, and they have a little bit more common sense. People have a little bit more money, they make a little bit more,
Yeah.
so they were always nervous to talk to him. But I always said, throw him to me. I
Yeah.
just want to see how I do.
Mhm.
I felt like if I crash and burn on this, I just found another opportunity to say, okay, I said this wrong. I shouldn't have said that. As
Mhm.
long as I didn't piss him off to the point where he said, I'm never going to talk to you again,
Uh-huh.
at least I know, okay, well, I can't say this and that to get where I want to get to. So I got to
Yeah.
try and go this way to get to where I
Mhm.
want to get to. So everyone's not the same. Everything is different, but you learn as you go, just
Yeah.
like anything else in life, you learn as you go. But those situations, yeah, I jumped in feet first, man. Always.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then what are the kind of daily habits, mindset shifts that sort of help you stay consistent and successful?
Every morning I try and either read something or I look at something motivational. So I'll look at an Instagram post or video, or I'll listen to. I've been trying to read books. I hate reading
Mhm.
books, but
Yeah.
I love to listen to books.
Mhm.
So I've been listening into chapters and things like that of
Yeah.
books or motivational things like that to try and keep
Mhm.
me in the mindset of what I'm looking to do. And I have a vision board. I do a
Mhm.
vision board every year.
Nice.
I look at things that I want to accomplish for that particular year, and I have an additional board that I look at every day to kind of pace myself to say, okay, this is the goal that I'm trying to shoot to. How close am I to this? What
Mhm.
adjustments do I need to make on a weekly, monthly, or quarterly basis in order to get to that goal? So
Yeah.
I do a quick, half hour set. I'll, like I said, I'll look at something really quick. I'll listen to 10 minutes on a book. I'll look at my board, which I have in front of me, and say,
Mhm.
okay, this is where I am, and do a pulse check and say, okay, let's get into it. And then, I take the day as it comes.
Yeah. That's awesome. Um, Talking about your dogs back again.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
what's your, let me see, how do I word this? Uh, so you say you have, like, 10 dogs now, right?
Right
Something
now I
like
have 10, yeah.
that. Yeah, you have 10. What's your favorite, I don't wanna say pick your favorite there, but what's your favorite breed of dog and why, what sorta keeps you having those dogs instead of, like, sending them to the pound kinda thing? What's
Oh,
your
they weren't my choice.
I
They
know, I
weren't.
know.
Yeah, they weren't here by choice. So
Mhm,
to give you the backstory on how we got dogs. So the first dog, I Akitas, it would be my primary breed. The
mhm,
reason why I love Akitas, my uncle used to breed Akitas in upstate New York, and I just think they're beautiful dogs.
mhm,
And every year I would go back to New York in the summer times. I would help them with the dogs and things like that. And it just grew on me because I was always around them.
Mhm.
And then my mother got one, and he was probably the best dog I've ever been around. I mean, he came to us at 7 weeks. How, I don't know. This dog was already potty trained at 7 weeks. Right?
Wow.
Is amazing. He never peed in the house, never
Wow.
pooped in the house,
Good
never tried to
dog.
bite anybody. I
Mhm.
mean, he used to break in my room and jump on me every morning. Like, he was my best friend. Like, he's
Huh.
an amazing dog. So when we had the opportunity to move into a house that had a yard, we said, okay, we're going to get the kids a dog. So we got a beagle,
Mhm.
so couldn't find a Nikita. Beagles seemed like good dogs. They didn't get too big.
Mhm.
Um, I was a little hesitant with the shedding, but my wife was like, no,
Mhm.
no, no, let's get it. So like, all right, cool, we got a dog. Turned into our dog because the kids didn't want
Mhm.
to take care of him. So we got stuck with him.
Uh,
Then a few years later, I said, okay, I'm never getting another dog. Wife comes home with a cockapoo. She
mhm.
says that, I told her we're not getting it. Sends me a picture. The dog has a collar with his name on it,
Mhm.
has a bowl already. So I'm like, all right, cool. So we have another dog. Then um, we foster another dog
Oh.
at 8 weeks, her and her brother. The brother got adopted. The girl didn't, and she was going to get sent back to a kill shelter at 8 weeks
Mm.
old. Pulls on the heartstrings. You
Yeah.
can't. I felt bad sending a puppy back to get it slaughtered, so
Mhm.
kept her. Then we are in a position where we foster two more puppies,
Mm.
and same situation. We had them for 3 or 4 weeks. We're sending them back. Kill shelter situation, and I
Oh.
kind of felt bad. We've already had them in the house. They've been
Mhm.
around all our other dogs. We're used to them. Fine,
Yeah.
whatever. We'll keep them. So we had them for several months. We go to Italy, come back, dog's pregnant.
Mm.
So, first litter, I'm Googling all this stuff out because I've never dealt with this before. I'm actually panicking because I don't know how to deliver dogs or anything like
Uh,
that.
oh,
So,
no.
um, first litter, they say, 5 to 7 puppies. So I'm like,
Uh-oh.
okay, putting out feelers. Everyone's saying, oh, yeah, 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 we want the dog as soon as they come.
Mhm.
Dog has 10 puppies,
Oof.
10 puppies. So, yeah. So as we're, taking care of the dogs, everyone's saying they want the dogs, and then all the people that said they want the dogs now falls off, and now we're stuck with
Oh,
them.
no.
So now, we got rid of 5. If I can get rid of all of them at this point, I probably would because I'm so
Yeah.
over it right now. But yeah,
Mhm.
we got rid of 5. We have 5 left. We have a few potentials, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But right now, I think I might have to buy a bigger house to house these other dogs. Give
At
them their
least
own room or something like
yeah.
that. Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
it's it's crazy.
Before it's time before they, what do you call it? Enter puberty.
Yeah, right? It's
Oh,
that's my biggest fear because there's 2
mhm.
girls and 3 boys left, and they're
Uh-oh.
they're already trying to do what they do. So it's
Mhm.
like right now they don't know, but eventually they will know, and I don't wanna
Yeah.
come home with another situation. So I gotta
Oh,
get them out
no.
of here before that happens. I can't deal with this.
Yeah. Yeah. So, talking about business back again.
Yeah.
So how has, your view of success evolved, over the years, not just selling insurance, but, in life in general, as you grow older, your view of what you think success would be tends to change and evolve as you, uh, achieve that success and you're like, this isn't success. And then it
Mhm.
grows and it shapes. So how has that journey been for you?
So when I first started in insurance, my view of success was always quantity. It would sell, 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 sell as much as you can.
Yeah.
Now I've shifted to quality
Mhm.
because what I found was always trying to sell on quantity. You find yourself in a rat race to where you're always spinning that reel and spinning that wheel and going, 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 going. And
Yeah.
I was in a situation to where I was always on. And what I mean by always on, being in sales, people got an idea of what this means. Your phone rings on a Sunday at 6 o'clock. You're
Mhm.
jumping off the bed to go take care of that, or 9 o'clock at night, or at the dinner table and things like that. So
Yeah.
I didn't have a good work-life balance, and it was turning into a really really bad situation. So I felt that okay, I need to step back and reevaluate how I look at my business and how I look at my personal life and take the quality, I'm sorry, the quantity part of it out and focus on quality, I can
Mhm.
get the same end result with quality business opposed to always trying to sell everything that comes through. So I just
Mhm.
had to value my time a little bit more. People would call and say, I can't do this right now. And
Mhm.
if they didn't understand, then it wasn't someone that I wanted as a client to begin with, or it wasn't a referral source that I wanted to begin with. And I feel like doing that shift has built my business 3 or 4 times more.
Mhm.
I'm doing more business now, valuing my time and the quality of my business than I was doing trying to sell everything under the sun.
Yeah.
So my vision of success is just valuing my time more so now than I did before.
Yeah. And then, mm, talking about that, where valuing your time, quality versus quantity, um, that kind of pivot and that kind of change, how is that strategy working for you? Um, how has it worked for you in the past? And then, like, moving forward, do you perceive any kind of pivots you may have to take, like looking at, I don't know, insurance market now? Like, what
Mhm.
do you do any like analysis in that way?
Not necessarily. Well, a little bit. I keep in a pulse check on what's going on across the country and stuff like that. I know a lot of people because I get these calls about, why is my rates going up? Why did my
Yeah,
rate increase? I didn't have a speeding ticket. I didn't have any claims or anything like that. So you kind of have to understand the lay of the land and why things are moving in the directions that they're
yeah,
moving. So I try and keep my ear to the ground and say, okay, well, if this is moving, what a lot of people don't know is that insurance companies have to pay for reinsurance, which
mm,
will determine the cost that you pay for your policies. So
mhm,
if their costs go up, our costs go up as the consumer. And the fires in California, the floods in
mm,
Florida, things of that nature, that all lays in and plays into this. So,
yeah,
you know, being knowledgeable and understanding how that works and knowing what companies you can go to and not go to is the
yeah,
pivot that I think I'm making right now. Knowing that, okay, eventually this is all going to change. And I know this is going to change. So,
yeah,
talking with the company as I work for, my brokerage that I work for, saying, hey, these companies work right now, but we are going to potentially have to pivot later on down the line and find other companies that are still
yeah,
solvent for one and
mhm,
still competitive with the market. So that's
mhm,
what we're doing right now, looking to try and pivot into all those other directions and make sure that the clients are still,
yeah,
able to stay clients and they're not paying through the roof and things of that nature. But
yeah,
unfortunately, there's some things that I just can't control. But
yeah.
trying to stay on top of them if we can.
Yeah. And then how have, sort of the politics of 2025 and 24 and 2024 and 2025 sort of pushed you into pivoting, into, different directions? Like, has it really changed insurance policies and in how you sort of, direct, certain plans versus other plans?
Not necessarily. No, not really. In regards to insurance and sales, I always tell people, sales is sales. It
Mhm,
is what it is, and products are products. The products don't change. It's just the
mhm.
prices have changed.
Yeah.
So it's not the products that are changing, in the benefits and the things like that. Those were all the same. It's
Mhm.
just the prices are changing. So you know, keeping an eye on what companies are doing what and which ones are going to potentially have that high jump. So we get a report that tells us, hey, this company is projecting a rate increase of X percentage versus this other company.
Yeah.
So we know when these things are going to come. So being knowledgeable enough to let the client know to say, hey, in January, this is going to go up by 20% with this
Mhm,
carrier. But over
mhm.
here, they're not doing it until September of next year. So
Okay.
being able to pivot in those areas is where those politics will come in at and knowing what's going to happen in the future.
You're a fortune teller. Yes.
I wish I'd known. I would have a Powerball ticket right now. I wouldn't be talking to you. Not from my house. I'd be sitting on a beach somewhere, man,
Yeah.
if I knew that.
Sounds good.
But
Uh,
yeah, no, we try to be, man.
yeah. And then, how do you, sort of work through burnout? And, as most business owners go through certain seasons of, you know, like for me, I just turned, well, I just turned 41 back
Yeah.
in December, but that 40-year-old mark, it was wild. Just seeing myself on a hill. I talked about this in my last podcast. Just saw myself on that hill, the proverbial hill. It's real, guys. And
Yeah.
I say, like, my past 40 years, what did I do? And so I was
Mhm.
like, the next 40 years, I'm sort of planning, what I want to do. This is part of it, and then a bunch of different things I want to work out. And I didn't buy a Corvette. I invested in myself. I started a bunch of different things,
Yeah.
and it's sort of helped me to grow as a person. And I'm appreciative of my upbringing, my parents and my dad, all of that. So for you, sort of what kept you, from doubting yourself, and stay competitive in this performance-based industry?
To stay competitive in this, I'm an extremely competitive person. Yeah, I
Mhm.
don't like to lose. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't like to lose. I loved the competition
Mm,
aspect of sales. Seeing your name in lights and all of that stuff. It's all cool. But eventually, it. I think having someone call me and say that, hey, I appreciate what you did for me. Can you call my cousin or call my mom or call this other
mhm,
person? Goes back to what I said about quality of business.
mhm,
I think that's the part that kind of keeps me from the burnout aspect of it. Because with the burnout aspect of it, I feel you.
mhm,
I was thinking about this once before as well. I have more years behind me than I do ahead of me.
mhm,
I'm reaching that point, and it's like, hmm, okay, what did I do?
mhm.
What do I have to show for all of this that I've been putting into this?
Yeah,
And it's just like yourself. I have things that I am putting in place that will um, potentially, outline my life the way that I want it to look in the next several years.
yeah.
Um, so the burnout aspect of it, I don't feel like I'm burning out. I feel like I'm getting how can I put it? I'm getting better with age,
Mhm.
And when I say I'm
Okay.
getting better with age is when I go back talking about chess, I'm thinking more clearly now than I would have several years ago. And I think that's
Mhm,
why I didn't do some of the things that I did several years ago because I was shooting from my hip.
mhm.
Now I'm not. I'm making a lot more conscious decisions,
Yeah,
and it allows me to not burn out more so now than I would have maybe years ago. I
yeah,
think I was running on what do they call it, piss and vinegar when you're young. You're just running and you're just
yeah.
doing everything. You don't get tired. You just
Yep.
run and run and run. And I think that's what I did. And I think my burnout was um, with my family. Not having the time with my family.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily the business; it was the family.
Mhm,
And I remember one time I was in New York. And can't believe I even did this. I'm in
mm,
New York on a Saturday, and I brought a backpack with my laptop in my backpack
mhm.
because I knew that the one of the car dealerships that I worked with was going to be busy on Saturday,
Uh-huh.
and I had to pick up every call to
Oh,
make
no.
sure that I got that sale
Uh-huh.
because I knew that that was going to help towards my, like I said, quantity over
Yeah,
quality. So I
yeah.
chose quantity, which took away from the quality of time with my family.
Uh,
And I think that was a, a hit of reality and said, you know what, I'm doing something wrong here.
mhm.
This is my burnout right here. I'm burning this too much. So I
Yeah,
need to step back and say, okay, let me focus on the quality of what I'm doing over here. And that's what made me pivot.
yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I've definitely done that, and that sort of helped me to strategize, talking about chess again,
Mhm.
it helped me to strategize with building teams,
Yeah.
having contractors that work for me, both in filming, actually, pressing the button, and also the editing, the back end stuff. I almost
Mhm.
don't edit any of my own stuff anymore,
Okay.
just because I want to be present for my family because I've been there countless hours hunched over, on the computer keyboard,
Yeah.
up literally the whole night trying to finish a project.
Yeah.
Whereas if I just send it to someone, overseas because it's cheaper, I could be able to sleep. I could go to a restaurant without, oh, I gotta finish up here so I could go and edit that project for that one client that's probably like for say for instance for a wedding, they'll probably see it once. Oh, that was nice. And then next year they'll see it again and then forget
Yeah,
about it. You
yeah.
know, and that's so it got me out of that kind of rat race and just bundled it in the package. It just
That's the aspect
works
that
out.
I'm doing right now too, as well. Trying to automate some of the things that I
Yeah.
have to deal with. I actually had this conversation earlier today talking about this, and just all of the time consuming aspect of my life, because
Mm,
I like talking to people.
mhm,
That's my thing. So if I could create this to where all I have to do is just talk to the people, and
mhm,
everything else and the back end part is handled by someone else, that's
yeah,
my ideal world. Or being able to, just like I said, just have a conversation and just share my knowledge with
yeah,
what I have or what I've been through, and things like that, and potentially help people. I love teaching,
yeah,
teaching people. So if I can get into a position like that, or I'm trying to position
mhm,
myself to get into a position like that, that's a win-win, for me and everything else that I'm trying to accomplish.
that's awesome. And then if you could go back to the beginning,
Hmm.
with what kind of advice would you give your rookie self just starting out in insurance? What would that look like for you?
Similar to what I said earlier, what I
Mm,
would give the new person coming in, and what I used to tell people when they would come into the agency, is find your voice. You're not like everybody else. Everyone is different. So you may like the way that I say things, but you can't say it the way that I say it. So don't try and
mhm,
sound like me. Sound like you.
yeah,
So I felt like in the beginning, I would always try and mimic what I was hearing from Carl, or mimic what I was hearing from Tom. And
mhm,
my cadence is different than their cadence, and my tone and my body language and mannerisms and voice inflections and all that other good stuff are all different than theirs.
yeah,
So it wasn't genuine, and the client can tell. If they're sitting there
mhm,
talking to you and you're being a parrot, and you're just
mhm,
going off of a script and things like that. I do
yeah,
it now. I'll call insurance companies. I mean, I'm a consumer as well. I don't have the best
mhm,
rates always, so I've called Geico and just like everybody else. But
yeah,
uh, I listen to the way that the people on the other side talk to me, and I'm just like, I wouldn't say that to a person, or why do you
yeah.
say it like that? Or I find myself critiquing people and stuff like that. So
I was
um
gonna ask you about that. How often do you
yeah.
critique people
Oh
like
man,
salespeople that you talk to?
always. I'll never forget. I walked into a Walmart once, and I
Mm,
walked into a Walmart, and the guy in the front was doing the cell phone. He was trying
mhm,
to sell cell phone services,
mm,
and his approach, I felt his approach could have been a little bit better.
yeah,
So I told him, no, no, I'm all set. I walked out and I did what I had to do, but I had to walk back to the car. So I walked past him again.
yeah,
And then when he came back in, I had to pull him to the side and I told him, hey, man, try this. And I told him, I said, if you try it like this, you might get
yeah,
a better approach. And he
yeah.
tried it and it actually worked with the very next person that he did. He
Wow.
was like, man, that was amazing. And I was like, yeah, man. I said, it's just you, you, you have to find your voice. You don't read the
Yeah,
script, because people can tell, man, when they're sitting there talking to you. I can tell when I'm talking to people on the phone.
mhm,
You're not being you. So if you're being
mhm,
you and you're being genuine and stuff like that, everything else will fall into play. All those blocks will work.
yeah, that's awesome. Maybe next time you give them your card, and then, like, you say and then,
So
like,
you know what?
build an
I
extra.
thought about trying to see if the guy would come work with me, man, because I needed
Oh,
an
okay, yeah,
assistant at the time. So I was like, you know what, guy, you got something, but
yeah,
I didn't give him my card though.
yeah, it's all good. Yeah, and then, sort of how has being in business sort of changed the way you see people? You sort of talked about that a little bit, but then,
Mhm.
people, money, and then, risk, the certain kind of risks are involved
Right.
with business in general. So, what kind of things have changed over the years for you?
I would say with money, I would
Mhm.
say you can always make more.
Yep.
That's how I look at money. When I first got into insurance, it was money, money, money. Like I said, that's how I found the job. I mean, instead of $100,000, it's a shiny coin and all that stuff. I'm like, hey man, I'm gonna go do this. But money goes away, money comes back, and it never ends. It's a
Yeah.
constant. So you can always make more money. Um, In regards to risks, I've I've learned to be probably a little bit more guarded with
Mhm.
risk. Um, I've stuck my neck out for certain situations to try and help people,
Yeah.
but people don't always have your best interest at heart,
Yeah.
So, to I'm in a customer service field, and I've always, tried to do my best to try and make sure I do the best thing for the client.
Yeah.
Um, and in situations to where, I probably shouldn't have taken the risk to try and help them. I did, and it
Mhm.
burned. So, you know, I'm a lot more cautious in the risk that I take
Yeah.
nowadays. And what else? What was the other question again?
Yeah, as it pertains to, people, money, and/or
People.
risk, yeah.
Okay. With people, like I said before, I think being in this field, it's opened my eyes to how to have a conversation with people.
Mhm.
How to uh, really listen to people when they talk. It's
Mhm.
helped me a little bit with my kids. Even though they don't listen to me sometimes, but I try and explain things to them in real life scenarios. I try to explain things to them in ways that I think that uh, they would be able to picture or visualize it. I
Mhm.
always try and explain things and paint a picture. That was
Yeah.
one thing that I learned as well when I first started in insurance, was to paint a picture. Don't just tell somebody what it is. Paint a picture. If you were, especially with life insurance, if something was to
Yeah.
happen to you, how would your wife take care of this or take care of that? Or, do you have a plan to set these
Mhm.
things in place? Or with auto insurance and things of that nature, if you get involved in an accident and you don't have the correct liability limits,
Yeah.
does your family have anything in place to help protect this or protect that? What would you do? And then I find that letting the client think and come up with the answers is way more impactful than you telling
Mhm.
them what's going to happen,
Yeah.
and that's the same thing with life in general.
Mhm.
People feel more comfortable with the decision when they make the decision. So
Yeah.
I think that's what I've learned about people.
That's awesome. And then with that, like with telling that story or learning how to paint the picture that you were saying,
Yeah,
that's showing them a story of possibilities, and
correct.
that's
Yeah.
grown over the years. And have you sort of, I don't want to say niched, but are there particular stories within selling insurance that you sort of is your go-to, or does it really vary widely depending on who you're talking to?
It varies widely, but I have
Yeah.
one thing in insurance that I feel like I've perfected.
Mhm.
It's a rebuttal feel felt found.
Okay.
If anyone's
Wanna explain
watching
that?
this and they've been
Yeah.
in sales, they probably have heard this before.
Okay.
Feel felt found. And I understand how you feel. Um,
Okay.
you know what I mean?
I see what you're saying,
Those type of things. So, but it's in order to make that work,
yeah.
you
Mhm.
have to really listen to what someone is saying. And it took me a while to really understand that. And it kind of hit home when I did have a team at one point that I
Mm.
would have to train, and we
Mhm.
would videotape, our interactions and things like that. And then I would play them back and I would listen,
Yeah.
and they would hear me say it, and they like the way I say it. And like I was saying
Okay.
before, find your own voice.
Yeah.
They like the way I say it, but when they say it, it sounded as if it was mimicked. And I told
Mhm.
them, I said, that's never going to work for you until you really understand why it is that you're saying what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it's always been my go-to, but I feel like it really hits the point home if you really understand how to use it and make
Yeah.
it relate to the client. And I think it's an amazing it's an amazing paintbrush to have to be able to paint the scene for what it is that you're trying to
Yeah.
show somebody.
Awesome. Have you ever physically painted a picture for a client?
No, but I've drawn a few. I've actually drawn a few.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I would like to see your drawing. I think I remember you talked about that,
yeah.
before. I like
I
to do
haven't
you
done it in a while.
yeah.
Usually when I would draw pictures, it would be because not just because I just felt like drawing. It would be something happened.
Mhm.
I drew a picture. My grandmother passed away. My uncle
Mm.
passed away. Just
Okay.
it would something that would inspire me to actually draw a picture.
Yeah.
But I would doodle. I doodle a lot. I
Mhm.
make all kind of little doodles and stuff like that. But to actually
Yeah.
sit down and really draw a picture, I
Yeah.
haven't done it in such a long time. It
Mhm.
probably looked like a 10-year-old did it right now. I don't know. But they
Well,
say it's what,
prac
like riding a bike.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
I don't know, but
yeah.
I haven't done it in a long time.
Oh, good. So we're coming to the home stretch here.
Okay.
So what's on the horizon for you, Mr. Collins, Michael Collins? Any new goals, services, expansions, something like
Yeah,
that?
so like I said, I'm looking to try and grow the team. So right now we are in a rebuilding phase, or an expansion phase, more or less. Because, like I
Mhm,
said, at our company, we have the commercial division, we have the high net worth field, and then where I work is kind of where I'm going to position myself to kind of head this and
mhm,
spearhead this and start looking for more agents to potentially come on board,
mhm.
or more assistance to try and help me with the book of business that I have.
Yeah.
Um, and we're going to be revamping the website and all of that good stuff. So for company wise, for Wheeler and Taylor, we have a few things on the horizon. For myself
Mhm,
as an individual, I'm looking to try and brand myself. I have a few things in the fire that once I figure out how I'm going to make this thing work out, I think it's going to
mhm.
be really, really cool. And I think it'll benefit a lot of people. So
Definitely.
once I get that all put together and be able to roll out, I'll definitely, share it in our group and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. That's all I really have on the horizon as of right now.
Okay. And then what would you sort of say to an aspiring insurance broker that's, wet behind the ears, just got their license and all of that?
Yeah.
What kind of motivating quote or, pep talk would you give them?
I would, for any new person that come in, what I used to tell them is, you don't know if you don't ask.
Mm,
So a lot of people, the phone doesn't ring by itself. You do have to network, you do have to go out and things of that nature, but you don't know if you don't ask. So for all the new people that used to come in, you know some of us that were in the industry for a long time, it looks easy. It does look fairly easy if you watch us do it,
mhm,
but it's not. It's a really hard grind.
mhm.
But ask questions. If you have a person in your office that's extremely successful, don't be
Yeah.
afraid to go sit there and talk to them. Go to lunch
Mm,
with them. Go buy them lunch and just pick their brain and find out what makes them tick and how they were able
yeah.
to create their business to be seamless, to make it look seamless.
Mhm.
A lot of people, they'll jump into something and they'll go to YouTube and watch videos and say,
Yeah.
"Oh, I can do this," or "I heard this person say this," or
Uh-huh.
they'll buy this course and say, "Oh, well, no, this
Uh-huh.
works," but it doesn't work that way.
No, it's not
Really,
all the time.
I know. Really take the time to invest in yourself, though. Ask questions.
Yeah.
You don't know if you don't know, and invest in yourself. And what I mean by that is perfect your craft.
Yeah.
Going back to old things like role playing, or like I said, just videotape yourself. I used to
Mhm.
do this all the time. I would sit down with a camera and videotape a full blown out conversation I'm having with
Wow.
myself, just to see what I
Okay.
looked like, to see what I sounded like, and see,
Mhm.
playback scenarios in my head, and then just say these things to make
Mhm.
it more fluent. And the
Yeah.
more fluent you become, the more comfortable you become in certain scenarios, the rest of the
Mhm.
stuff will be easy. You have to
Yeah.
do the continuing education every year for the state of Connecticut.
Mhm.
So, you will be on top of your knowledge, but in regards to you as an individual and growth outside of business and even on a personal,
Yeah.
invest in yourself with those particular things. And I think the sky will be the limit for anyone who's
Yeah.
trying to do it.
That's awesome. So it's sort of like in short, you don't know what you don't know, so find someone that knows so you can know.
Exactly. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put that on my next t-shirt.
Yeah. A lot of no's. Uh, so in closing, first I wanna say thank you for being on the podcast.
Of course,
Uh,
anytime, man.
Pleasure having you on. Where can people find you and connect with you and, uh, connect with your insurance company and everything?
Yeah, of course. So Wheeler and Taylor, we're based out of Massachusetts, but I work at the Glastonbury location here in Connecticut. I can be reached directly at, you can see it here, 860-556-3810. So it's Mike, the insurance guy here.
Awesome.
But yeah, they can reach me at that phone number. I have that phone with me all the time, but I do, I do, I do value my time. So if if I do not pick the phone up, please, please, please leave a message. I do not know what anyone wants if they don't leave a message. That's one of my pet
Yeah.
peeves. So leave a message, shoot me a text as well. I can also be emailed at mcollins@wheelerandtaylor.com. I would love to review anybody's insurance, or if they just have questions or want to pick my brain, I'll be more than happy to sit down and have a conversation. You can buy me lunch.
Yeah. Awesome. And you could take one of his dogs off his hands.
Please, please, please.
Seems to be put into every conversation
Oh,
because
it most definitely is.
it's awesome. Well, again, Michael, it was a pleasure. Thanks for being on. I hope all the best to you, all the success to you, and I'm sure I'll see you again soon.
Of course, man. I wish you all the success with your podcast as well, man. It's
Yeah.
amazing that you're jumping out on a limb and doing this, man.
Yeah, of course. There you have it. That was Michael Collins from Wheeler and Taylor. His details will be down below if you're looking for a new insurance policy, if you're feeling you're being overinsured or even underinsured for whatever reason. His details will be down below. Hey, thanks for watching. It was a blast talking with Michael and having you being part of the conversation. Feel free, like, subscribe, and follow this show. Comment down below if there's any kind of guests or ideas that you want us to, really connect with and find a business owner that could really speak into that kind of business. But until next time, just remember this one thing that came from Michael's talk. It's not so much about quantity, it's about quality. So, whatever kind of business that you're in, whatever kind of product you're pushing, try to pursue quality. Don't try to make people a number, because if you don't like to be seen as a number, why would any of your clients be seen as a number? They're people just like you. So, respect, love, appreciate, all those things, and you're going to get that back, tenfold. All right. Take care. Thanks for watching.